This is Rugby Unity. I am David Pembroke and Ewen McKenzie. We are off to the races with the Rugby in November. Take me through your viewing habits on the weekend. What did you watch? What did you like? What didn't you like on the big matches that we watched over the weekend?
Well, being an old man, mate, I got up for the Wallabies England, and then you start to run out of juice a little bit after that. Had a bit of a snooze. I had to watch the Japan game on highlights, and then got into the Ireland All Blacks game, that was a bit of hard work. So yeah, it was a good game. I thought it was a good Test match, the Australia England game, and then it went from there. I didn't watch Scotland. America, watched a few highlights, but it looked to be done and dusted by half time. So, so watched the other two in more.
Let's go through them because England, Australia, 25 points to 7. For mine, it was never in doubt. And if England had taken all of their chances, such as Hayes being held up, Ben Earl being held up, the miracle intercept by Harry Potter, the kick out from Tane Edmed. It could have been plenty to not many at half time. But what did you like about the game, and what did you like about the England performance and the Australian performance?
Yeah, I think what you say is true. It could have been 40-0, like without much changing, without the mercurial Harry Potter popping up with a bit of magic here and there. He literally saved the day, and he scored that try. And, it was like what I was thinking. This is like Ford versus Ferrari. He's the Ford. He's the F100 out there, like doing hard yards. He was in rucks getting penalised and he was, rather than the fancy glamorous guys on the wing, he's the hard yards, and he was effective. He read the moments, and so respect to him. He was terrific. McWright was terrific for Australia, but other than that, it was all a bit ho-hum. Australia seems to be focused very much in the contest, and they had no momentum in their attack at all. In fact, they didn't even look like they were trying to get across the advantage line in the second half. It all seemed to be pulling up short in their rucks, and maybe that was a strategy, I don't know, but there was nothing after that. I was actually starting to count the amount of times the ball went from 9 to 10, and then 10 to 12, and then after that. And there were just so many times we're just punching the ball up, sort of one or two off the ruck, and that was it. And then the reality is the line breaks were created by the forwards for Australia. It was the short passing game of the props and Wilson and whatever, putting other forwards into holes. And I'm thinking, the forwards can do it. Well, what's going on? There doesn't seem to be any cohesion at all in terms of what the backline's trying to do. There was a couple of times, Jorgensen floated around the back, and it looked like there was something going on there, but that was about it. Whereas England were all action. They were looking, and they had good tempo. There was a tempo in their game. It wasn't stop-start, particularly early on. They looked purposeful. Didn't take the shots at goal early. I thought that might have been a mistake, but they kept at it. Australia's line-out kept them at bay, I suppose, in terms of possession. They kept contesting the possession. That sort of went both ways a little bit. Scrum was relatively even. The thing that interested me at scrum was England was able to take advantage of any scrum movement. They were making 30 metres across the advantage line on a pivoting scrum. They just played the side that the scrum pivoted, and Australia's defence was so deep and didn't come up. So there seemed to be some confusion or something going on there in terms of the line speed of Australia in defence. Their tackling was good. The tackling from England was really good. I think they'd borrowed from Eddie's defensive game plan the week before. They tackled where the ball was really well and got stuck in. So I was really impressed with that. I didn't think England had it in them. I thought that the English back row was terrific. I'd watched a lot of them in the Lions, but they had a really good balanced back row. And then, of course, what do I say about guys with hair? Well, I say always look at the hair. Then Pollock comes on with the blonde bleached hair, and everyone's going, as I read online, everyone's going Pollock, Pillock. That all came out very quickly. And he spent most of the time looking at himself on camera, but producers moments of brilliance, and that try he scored was outstanding. In fact, he was watching himself on the camera when he got ankle tapped, and he still scored the try. So, but then I watched back of the F100. Harry Potter, he was watching himself on camera when he's made his line break and he made the intercept. So it seems to be a new trend. I didn't go that far to score a try in my time, but I'd be looking dead set at the goal line and nowhere else. And you want to know exactly how far you got to go. You want to be looking at the camera, seeing how you're going. So, look, I thought it was a good game. The referee was involved. A lot of talk about the ruck angles that cost Australia, but ironically, the first penalty was against England for the angle of entry. So, I thought the referee tidied that up. I actually think he's doing what you're meant to do in a game. It's just been forgotten, and the referee, someone's brought it to their attention. It's really a World Rugby issue. It's not the referee of that game. It's really something that needs to be sorted out, because if you just don't have that offside line, where does it end? If you don't have any offside line at the ruck, where does it actually end? They're coming in from behind the halfback. There's no limit, and there's a bit of that when you watch it and when you focus on it. There is a bit of that going on. People will take shortcuts all the time. So I think some focus there is better for the game. So that was there, but in the end it was that England seemed to be cohesive, even with Ford at 10, who's not the most creative player. They were able to make some good breaks, good individual bits of skill. Australia just didn't seem to be able to create anything with any great purpose. And you take out the intercept, and they could have easily been 0. And England missed 3 out of 4 conversions, so they could have been 30-something. Earl will be kicking himself for not scoring that try, because that would have taken the pressure off the game. So that was crucial. But England played well. They played better than I thought they could, and England and Australia were not as good as I thought they'd be.
Well, a couple of things for mine. England, I think the team that they took to Argentina played very well in Argentina. And, I think Borthwick rewarding them and putting his Lions on the bench. They played to a standard, and they played for an opportunity in that first half. And certainly, they set the standard, and, they will continue to push.
I'll give it to Borthwick. His timing was perfect on the replacements.
Yes.
Well, I think, when's he going to bring those Lions in?
Yeah.
Normally you think 20 to go or something. He brought them in after 45 minutes. He brings them all on at once, and they got something to play for. They're on the bench. The young guns are starting ahead of them, sort of thing. So they actually have to perform, which they all did. And they sort of created something, particularly in the forwards. They had to keep the momentum going. They had to build on the performance. They couldn't go out there and let the performance suffer, because that would reflect on them as Lions and as England players. So he set it up perfectly psychologically within the team.
Yeah.
And he got good value out of the guys, rewarded the guys from Argentina. I went back and had a look at the combinations he used, and he did reward guys there with the selection. He had their cohesion to start the game, so I think he coached that pretty well. The whole thing was pretty well done by Borthwick.
Yeah, look, it was never in doubt, really. I thought England were well and truly on top of Australia. And I think there is something to this about Australia being exhausted at the end of a long tour. And in fact, when I was in Tokyo, I was in the Australian hotel and did see the boys get off the bus at some point. And as they walked past, I know it was the beginning of a tour, but there was something about it that made me think that there is a tiredness, there is an exhaustion. A Lions tour, a big rugby championship, and now they're going. And we just don't have in Australia the depth that a South Africa, an England, a New Zealand, the French, they have a lot more players available to them. And we are having to make do with players who are probably not quite at the standard that they need to be.
I think there's a bit of narrative around that, and it's easy to set up that but we've chosen to play a fairly attritional brand of rugby, like it's heavy duty, in close, when we're on attack, a lot of involvements by players in ruck clean-outs and whatever. It's all very forceful and whatever. Yeah, sure, it's tiring, but that's what we haven't liberated. We haven't used the width of the field regularly to try and create some sort of a bit of freshness and a bit of aerobic. It's all very in close, intense, and so you do pay a price for that. And then teams that come back, they've obviously watched how Australia play. They've come back and they're actually now defending really hard on the ball. So that's requiring more involvement. So you sort of get what you get for how you're trying to play the game.
Yeah, that's
there's
a good
no
point.
freshness. There's no excitement. The excitement's gone, and that's to some extent looks to be how they've chosen to play the game.
Yeah.
You can't just say it's the opposition's fault. You've got to say, well, is that what's the tactics? Because I don't see Jorgensen was unsighted.
Yeah.
Like, he had a couple of touches, one on a kick, and there was one time he ran around the back. There's only time they took him off with 15 to go, 20 to go. Like, he was off the field. I couldn't believe it. Like, he was a match winner last year. So Ali is trying, but teams are marking him pretty hard and bashing him when he's got the ball. So he's got 3 guys on him. So there isn't any sort of the expression. The ball's not moving around, so you're not fatiguing the opposition because they're all quite direct. So yes, you do pay that price when you're doing that every week. Yeah.
And by contrast, I think England in their attack, when they did get the opportunity, it was, let's go, move the ball quickly, move it to the wing as quickly as they could, and they made huge amounts of ground.
Well, quick taps, quick line-outs. Like, backs can take pressure off the forwards. Like, you just have a quick line-out, throw the ball in and keep the game going. Okay, everyone's still got to run, but they're not clashing bodies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of body clashing going on for the Wallabies now, and the forward pack's a little bit more lightweight than it was when you've got the likes of Skelton and whatever. So there's a bit of a cost to that style of football, and when you choose to attack that way, you've got to commit numbers in attack to clean out and whatever, and then you look at those caterpillar type things with the rucks and the box kicks. You've got 5 guys in there. They've got to get off the ground, then they've got to get up and chase, and then you're bashing into people. A lot of body clashes, and I assume that they're training that way too, to practice it. So whereas I don't see a couple of times I'm watching EdMed, I'm looking at to see what happens at the 10-12 channel, and there doesn't seem to be anything going on, any organisation going on. So it's just pass, and then bang, and then someone's got to clean out again, and it's like that. So I saw comments from the coach about, they've obviously counted the number of rucks and they're worried about the angle of entry. They just sit there and to go through all of that. There's I don't know. I think there needs to be a strong focus on trying to make something, get the excitement back in it for them, because they did score, and we can't get away from the fact that some of those tries we got early in the piece against the Lions and whatever, there was some individual brilliance that went with that, Jorgensen and the like. Now it's become hard work because teams aren't giving, they're playing a certain side of the field, and so there's not so many opportunities for the brilliance. So you need the guys like the F100. He's the one that's doing the glamorous things, because he's probably being left unmarked, and they're worried about Jorgensen. They're playing to Potter's wing more than they're playing, especially on the kicking game, to Potter's wing than Jorgensen. So Jorgensen was in the game.
So for England, obviously a busy few weeks ahead for a couple of teams, and we will talk and preview about those matches for England and Australia into the future. But also the same day, wet conditions at Wembley. Didn't look to be the world's biggest crowd, but South Africa 61, Japan 7. Japan 2 yellow cards that they had to deal with. But really, I don't think it was ever in doubt that exactly what happened was going to happen. You could see that from space, really. And when you consider the number of caps that the South Africans had, I think it was 781 caps in their side. Take Michael Leach out of Japan, and you might have been, around the 100, 120 mark. So, there was a big gap in physical, speed, skill, a huge gap, and no amount of tactics is really going to fix that for you, particularly when South Africa were in a mood. So what did you see out of that?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, we forecast that. We didn't want to, we were hoping it wasn't going to be a big scoreline. I thought half-time, I think it was 25.
Yeah.
7, mate. There wasn't much. And I'm thinking, that's not bad.
Yeah.
But then they had more to bring on the field, the Springboks, and it's just more of the same. That's the problem. And Feinberg says Sasha gets a couple of good tries early on.
Yeah.
So you take the freak there at 10. He scores 2 great tries. he's Larkham-esque in terms of when he makes that, chooses to run, like really impressive. Like, I was thinking back, Henry Honourable, some of these guys, that's what, big lanky sort of guy, but scything through that was terrific. So he was the difference in the first half, and then you've just got the grind and that sort of power stuff that just goes on, and that was just featured the whole way through. Very hard to stop. Any team in the world struggles to stop them when they're on, when on song. So, they just South Africa had good field position, and that was that. There wasn't much else you could do. So you chalk it up to experience, and they probably would have hoped to have keep 25 points at half time, probably hoping to keep it under 50, but it didn't quite get there, But
the thing I liked about, again, as a young team, being given the opportunity to play against what is clearly a very, very talented world-class team, I would have thought from Eddie's point of view that, and we'll talk to him when he jumps with us, he is in the UK and it's about 4:00 in the morning, but we are hoping that he will join us shortly to have a conversation.
Not on the exercise bike yet.
Not yet. No, we've jumped in. We've jumped in before he gets on the exercise bike. But
he'll be doing this on the exercise bike. You watch, pedaling on the background.
But from a coaching point of view, and that's something that I was thinking about on the weekend that I'd ask you, is that you clearly want those opportunities to give your younger players the opportunity to play against the best. And, okay, you've been beaten 61 points to 7, but at least it's not a theoretical discussion now about how you play against South Africa. It's like, that's what you get. So how are we going to improve? How are we going to get better?
But there'll be good things that they can take out of the game, and it is experience. And the easy thing for Eddie to do is to shy away from those games and try and protect your win-loss percentage and worry about those sorts of things. He doesn't worry about that. He's got the slightly longer-term perspective about it, and he's trying to develop a younger group of players. And what do? You're playing Australia one week, he loses by a couple of points, he gets towelled the next week by South Africa, but at least you're putting yourselves up against the best.
Yeah.
So you've got a real benchmark, and anything else they play is going to be that. But, I mean, who hasn't lost by 60 points to South Africa at some point in time? Like, that's the reality. Like, I think Australia has. Like a lot of teams have, So you just got to chalk that one up, and, they'll look through and they'll find things that maybe they could have kept it to 40 points or whatever. But in the end, the good big guy beats the good little guy. Yeah. So you've got to then have other ways to play, and you need a bit of luck in that.
Yeah. So, anyway, and we'll talk about it later in the week, the much-anticipated South Africa-France match that takes place this weekend, because that is a real clash of the heavyweights where, two sides, brilliantly talented, physical, large. That is the game of November for mine, and look forward to seeing that. But so that was that. South Africa, Japan, New Zealand, Ireland. To me, 62,000 people crammed into Soldiers Field to watch what potentially could have been a fantastic game of rugby, and it was a mess. From start to finish, It was a mess.
It got a little bit better with about 10 to go.
About 10, exactly, with 10 to go. Roy Gard did a few things, and Wallace Satiti did a few things, but the rest of it,
I mean,
it was awful.
There was obviously, the yellow-red card. There was the Barrett that lost the Barretts early for New Zealand. Ireland was one man short. But then the referee just seemed to be jumping, and his Alamo, it was like his Alamo, he decided that crooked line-out throwing was going to be something he fixed up himself on the day. So he came up with like 6 or 7 rulings on crooked throws. Now, I admire I admire what he's trying to do, but no one else is doing it, because you've watched the Australia-England game, no one worried about crooked throws at all. So the answer's in the middle somewhere. No. I thought the rule was you have to throw it straight, and if the opposition doesn't jump and it's slightly crooked, you play on. But in his game, there was times he was penalising for crooked throws and the opposition didn't even jump. So that was like what the law was 5 years ago, whenever it was. So... And then he did a couple of others and so the players were confused. It all got a bit confusing. I was confused watching it. I think that the rule needs to be cleared up anyway. I don't want to keep bashing about rules every time I talk, but that's just another area of the game where it seems to be a bit of a mystery, because if you watch 2 games in a row, you wouldn't think that you wouldn't know what was going on, because it's completely contrasting. So that's something that I think did tidy up. But yeah, we said it was going to be a close game. It was, and then New Zealand just got away at the end. So their bench did a little bit better. A couple of guys coming in and making a difference. Roygaard played the whole game. He's a special player, and then I think he makes a massive. He makes a massive difference, and I think they've really missed him. And you can see that now, that since he's been back, they've been, not perfect, but they've been winning. And that's what they're used to doing. So I think he's been a massive difference for him, and the fact that they didn't replace him probably says everything.
But the thing that sort of, it's just that it's the off-field stuff for me that really, here was an occasion, huge build-up, 62,000 people. Here is our great game. Have a watch of this. And then you can imagine a lot of people leaving thinking, well, if I never see that again, that'll be too soon. Because, you had a mate there, didn't you?
Yeah, a mate of mine, Bruce McLean, he's a coach in New York, and he and I trade thoughts all the time, and he was at the game fizzing for the game, like how good it was going to be. And then he's going, my God, like he's going, like he was texting me. It was just like the air was going out of the balloon. It was just unbelievable, like the missed opportunity there to. Now, that's not to say you can't fabricate the circumstances on the field, but it just never got going.
No.
Like it was real, and it just spurted out at the end. The All Blacks got away, and that was that.
So the red card, the Ty Burn red card, I thought it was really interesting that the television commentary that they were Jackman and Marshall, the two colour commentators. They were trying to talk. I don't know who they were trying to talk to, but they kept sending the message, "Oh, there's nothing in this. There's nothing in this." But as soon as there was that shoulder contact to the head, it was like, no, he's going to go. And as soon as he went, he was always going to get red because of what it was. But Beauden Barrett's come out today and said, look, there was no malice in it. It was accident. It was a rugby accident on the field in a contact sport. But there we go. There we, 20-minute red card, and we've got to deal with it.
You're asking the wrong guy, because I look at that and I always just look for the cynical. Yeah. And the genuine fouls, skullduggery type stuff, and I just didn't see it.
No.
I just saw 2 players arriving in the same space immediately. It was just happened, and they were just both upright. Now, sometimes you just can't, it depends on what you're watching, you can't be in a tackling position. It happens so fast.
Yeah.
For me, it was just inadvertent. Okay, maybe a penalty or something like that, but you got to move on from these things. I just think that we've got the whole so-called foul play thing wrong.
Yeah.
I understand the head stuff, but I still think you have to assess whether it's some sort of cynical or skullduggery aspect to it, rather than just plain old bad luck.
Well, it was an accidental collision. Like, as you say, there was no intent at all from Ty Burn. He was upright, and he probably did need to get a bit lower, but there was no damage caused. It was a glancing blow. It was no sort of there was no sort of intent to bury his shoulder into Beauden Barrett's head. So anyway,
we've seen recent instances where that's actually happened. Like, there's been worse contact in other games and nothing's happened, and it's because it's been inadvertent.
Yeah,
they said, like in the Japanese game, the guy when he tackled underneath, they said nothing there, or where was he going to go? So they just let it go. So that was probably more damaging, So I think they've got to look at that. I think they've got to really look at what the intent is. So
Yeah, but
anyway.
it really is interesting. No, but we still have to.
It ruins the game.
We've got to keep at it. We really do need to keep at it to keep talking about it, because there does have to be some sort of resolution. Because if it continues to have impacts like that on the game, such as that, we've got to be better than that, I think.
We know when someone's off the field that's going to have an impact on the game.
Yeah.
So, because teams stop competing at the breakdown, they stop doing things because they're one man short. Yeah. So it does have an impact, So.
Yeah. So the other results, as you say, I did watch Scotland 85 over the USA, or at least the extended highlights. Complete walkover. Scotland clearly a very good side. The USA short a number of their players. Anyway, there's a lot of work to be done there with the USA, particularly as we look to 2031. And in the Rugby Europe Trophy that we spoke about last week, Sweden 38 have started their season with 2 wins over Lithuania 3 and Croatia 36. Too good for Denmark 26. So they were the results from the weekend. So to you, the third voice. Your comments, Brian Barberich says, thank you, David, Eddie and Ewan. Looking forward to some exciting rugby during this Northern Hemisphere tournament. I think Rassie wants to go for all wins. I can guarantee you, Brian, that Rassie wants to go for all wins. Cheers from Durban. And at Ed Hunter says, always love watching the show from England, guys. 3 experienced old rugby nerds talking a lot of sense. So thank you very much, Ed, for taking the time to make a comment. Now, a question. Ewen McKenzie from at TSG. Given the expanded World Cup and the new annual game limits for players, requirements for quality depth are now at an all-time high. It seems to me that some coaches, Erasmus, Borthwick, Galty, have caught on to this and are preparing accordingly. Surely the ideal for a top international side is no longer having first-choice players in any given position, but rather a couple of top players in each position who get regular rotation. Do you agree with that assessment? And if so, does that hurt the prospects of smaller nations going forward? Ewen McKenzie.
Yeah. Well, I think we've already made some comments about the new player welfare rules. So I do think that's where you're going to end up, where you've got a handful of teams that have got the depth to be able to do that, and a whole lot of teams that won't be able to do that. They're just going to be basically 1.5 teams, whereas other teams like South Africa's got 5 teams. Of all, basically, we've seen a list of it. There's 4 or 5 teams. So so that's the potential. That's where you might get to. So hello. See my parity that you might get.
Oh, wow.
You might get to. Yeah, so that's where you possibly might end up. So,
what's your parrot called? What's your parrot's name?
This one, I've got lots. This one's Matey. This one's
Matey.
The old mate. Oh,
right, old mate.
So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
It's pretty smart. Anyway.
Matey.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a problem. That's where we're going to be talking about that in 2 years' time, probably. So.
Yeah. But again, we'll look at South Africa in the number 10, as you were mentioning earlier, like Sasha Feinberg and Gomazulu. He comes off. Marnie Libok's there. If Marnie's not available, we can have Hondre Pollard, and that's that depth that they have. Whereas you look at Australia at 10, Liner injured out. Well, Lalesio first, injured out. Liner injured out. Where we go from there? We then end up to, James O'Connor, not available and not selected to travel to Italy this week, interestingly. And then on top of that, Tane Edmed, Ben Donaldson seems to be fallen out of favour. So, but contrast the quality that South Africa has to choose from as opposed to Australia, and it just goes to show you the contrasting depths that different squads have.
Yeah, and that's where Australia's got to, we've got to spend more time in that younger age groups. Obviously, we're getting competition from other sports, for those types of athletes, So we've got to make sure we're in there, because otherwise you never see them. They're already gone. So we don't get the chance. So we've got a different set of circumstances, and we've got to go and try and compete in that space, so much earlier, so that we have got the resources available at the right time.
Sassy Holter, at Sassy Holter, says, on the subject of the world calendar and international windows, does World Rugby have the power to remove their sanction of competitions, leagues and test matches? Can they hold stakeholders to ransom until everyone can work together and properly align themselves?
Well, I think that then they've got the money. So you always follow the money. You've got the purse strings of what they are, So theoretically they can, but often the money's spent before they actually give it to you. You know what I mean? Like it's already spent. They've employed people and programs and things like that, so it's already gone. So, it is what it is.
It would seem
yes, theoretically.
That would seem a bit dramatic and draconian that they may, and that is not sort of World Rugby's style to be able to do that. But Eddie Jones on last week's program made a good point about, how many weeks are required for international rugby, how many weeks are required for domestic, because the discussion obviously is around these international windows. And last week, outside the window, not players available. England had full availability and access because they'd paid their clubs in advance to get access to the players. So, look, I think they've made good progress around the annual calendar, but, there is more to be done, and it will continue to take time. And it's not the NFL where there's 32 owners sitting around the table who can just decide what they do on a domestic competition, such like the NBA or indeed in Australia with the AFL or the NRL, where they can just make decisions because they're all sitting in the room. It's a complex, difficult, perpetual dance because one person's interest is not aligned to another person's interest in the game.
No, that's right.
So,
it is what it is at the moment, but I think that's improving gradually. So,
I think it is as well. And so, I think World Rugby doing a lot of good in that, ongoing commitment to, perpetual improvements. One thing I thought they didn't do particularly well was the announcement of the 27 cities who retain interest and bidding for the Rugby 2031. We went from 40 cities to 27. There was the United Rugby Summit in Chicago at the weekend. And so this news came out in a press release that was announced at the summit. So I went looking for the summit to see if anyone had recorded it.
You couldn't find it.
Had anyone had streamed it? Had we created any sort of event? If this was the NFL, they would have turned that into a 3-day jamboree of who's going to be in, who's going to be out. And then they would have had all the cities there and ready to jump up and down. We've just got to get better at creating stories and look at these wonderful stories that we had, because then everyone could have,
It takes the mystery about how you get to where we get to, whatever it is. You know how it actually happens. But if you don't know how it happens, because I didn't know there was a conference in Chicago. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because there's a big game on there. It would have been a great spectacle, but nice junket for everyone to go to Chicago, somewhere a bit different. So you can sort of see how. So I'm not surprised it was on, and they probably didn't tell anyone because they didn't want anyone to know that they're on a junket. But that's the reality. But it's just the mystery again. The mystery continues, so you never know how you get from point A to point B. Yeah. That's the problem. So
anyway, and look, but to my point, and obviously this is my interest, is this around the off-field side of the game and creating interest, getting more people in more countries to care more about rugby. You could have really built a great storyline through that. And, what were the things that they were looking for? What are the venues that they're going to be? You could have rolled tape of, these famous stadiums. Like, it could have been a big deal. It was like when they announced the in Australia, who were the host cities for Rugby World Cup. Again, it was a private function held down at one of the finger wharfs in Sydney, and there was a few media there and all the rest of it, but it was just nowhere near the level of occasion that and the drama and let's get involved and we're just so poor at doing that.
Yeah, and then you said that with the Japanese press conference, there was no Australians there, so
no one.
That's the problem.
Not a sausage. But anyway, but we've got to keep talking about these things because we do have to get better. Because there's no way that we're going to solve the finance problems that the sport's got unless we can attract more interest. And the only way you attract more interest is you take a leaf out of the NFL, who, as Jerry Jones says in his Cowboys documentary, it's a soap opera 365 days a year. And if there's nothing happening, they'll make something happen. They'll attract attention, and we just roll along. Oh, here's a press release. Like, who puts anything out by a press release or an announcement? But then that conference, I would have been interested in the Rugby Unity podcast would have been interested in the United Rugby Summit. But guess what? Who knows what happened? Who spoke there? What did they talk about? What were the issues? Because I know people in our audience would have been would have loved to have watched a stream of that from Chicago. Sure. But anyway, there we go. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Ewen McKenzie, we'll let you get you and Matey to get back to it, and we will speak to you.
Matey's got to go to bed.
Matey's got to get to bed, and we will speak to you later on. But a big thanks to Ewen McKenzie for joining us on a very wet southern Victorian state in Australia with his trusty companion there. And we will be joining Eddie Jones when he joins us from North London as they prepare for their big match against Ireland this weekend.
We're not talking rugby, we're building it. Rugby Unity.
So, Eddie Jones, you received everything that was promised by South Africa. Tough, hard, competitive, wet day, 61 points to 7. How are you feeling a day after the result?
Well, a little bit better than yesterday, but still not too good, mate. Battered and bruised, and I was certainly impressed by South Africa. Like we weren't able to deliver the best version of ourselves. We just were a bit shell shocked, mate. You know, I think there were players there that didn't handle the intensity of the occasion and went into their shell. So that's disappointing, and you know that's my fault because I didn't give them the preparation they needed to have the confidence to go in the game. You know, you can be confident going in the game if you've had repeated success, and we didn't have that. So that's my responsibility. And then secondly, you know, the big thing from that is you learn very quickly the gap between where you are and where you need to be. You know, and we had a couple of good meetings yesterday discussing that and understanding that right now's the opportunity to really accelerate, you know, the team and individually where you need to go. You know where the gap is, and now we've got the opportunity to do it.
Ewen McKenzie did make the point earlier in the program that there's not too many people walking this earth that hasn't been beaten by South Africa by 60 points. You know, they've been handing out shellackings to people in different times over different years. So I don't think there's any great shame in that. But certainly the yellow cards always makes it difficult to play, 20 minutes against a team like South Africa without the full complement of players on the field.
Yeah, well, yellow cards are generally an error by a player or the pressure that the opposition put on you. And in our case, it was the pressure that the opposition put on us caused yellow cards. So we've got, we're responsible for those two players being off the field.
Also, the huge gap in experience as well. I think they had something in the order of 781 caps. And if you took Michael Leach's caps out of Japan, how many did you have?
We would have had around 250. Yeah, we've got a team now where the general number of players, the most number of players are between 10 and 20 caps. So that's a team that started Test rugby last year. It's their second year in Test rugby, and the learnings are coming thick and fast, mate.
So you mentioned before taking responsibility to prepare the players for the occasion with the right levels of confidence, but is it realistic to think that they're going to be able to cope with it, given that they've never experienced it before and they'd never been in that environment before, playing against a team like South Africa?
Well, I think you can do anything, mate, and some things are very hard to do. But, if you go back to 2015, we literally had 2 years to prepare for that game. So we were prepared, right? Even the Australian game, albeit that Australia didn't play their top team, we had 4 weeks to prepare for that game. And when you particularly got a young team like we've got, you've got to do that repeated training so they get that repeated success, so it builds their confidence. And, given the circumstances, we're not trying to use this as an excuse, but this is the reality. we had Monday, Tuesday in Tokyo, spent Wednesday on the plane, arrived in London Thursday.
Yeah.
Friday we're at Wembley, and then we're in the big occasion. So, and I take responsibility for that. I decided we'd take the game. We didn't have to take the game, but I wanted our players to have this experience. And, at the end of the day, it's such a valuable experience. You go there, you got to adapt pretty quickly. We didn't talk about jet lag. We didn't talk about anything. You just had to get yourself right and front up. And, in the circumstances, again, as I said, we would have wanted to front up better than we did. But, I'm really proud of the effort of the players.
And look, I think with the benefit of hindsight and in a couple of years' time, you'll look back on that and there will be a valuable contribution. Now, you played against South Africa. It's a few years since you've coached against South Africa. How have they changed in those couple of years since you've had the opportunity to coach against them?
Well, there's two areas I noticed were significantly different. One was their speed and height of their work around the breakdown. They were really quick and really aggressive and really low. There was once where Malcolm Marks cleaned out one of our players who was over the ball and caused a turnover, where he literally looked like he plays for Gabota in League One, and he literally looked like a bulldozer. He must have been less half a metre in his height, and he just hit him and cleaned him out and took him off the ball. So that was really impressive. And then secondly, the speed of their backs and the speed of their backs of being able to take advantage of unstructured situations has definitely improved. And, everyone's talking about Sasha, and quite rightly, he's a brilliantly talented player. He's got good feet, he's got a good fend, he's got an eye for space, he wants to take people on, and he's a big fella too. He's not a small player, so he certainly looks like he's going to be a really good talent coming through. There's obviously a lot for him to negotiate in the next couple of years to see whether he can keep his head on and keep applied to his task, but there's no reason to think he can't.
So within the balance of the South African team, who else impressed you?
Obviously, just the power of their scrum and their maul. That's always been a vital part of the Springbok game, but they're so consistent in those areas now. And that's the thing. Sometimes in previous years their lineouts have been a little bit wonky, but they're so solid in the lineout. Scrum, we couldn't get any sort of advantage. I thought we hung in there really well and scrum really well. That was one area of our game that stood up to the pressure, so that's a positive for us.
So did you catch up with Rassie after the game, and did he give you a bottle of wine, or did you give him a bottle of wine?
No, we didn't catch up. It was all a bit of a rush now. With the arrangements, we were out on the road straight away. But I had a quick chat to him before the game. He was in good spirits, and that's expected given the team he's got.
All right. So would you catch up with him at any given time between, I don't know, over the next little while? Do you sort of say that you'll catch up and arrange at a particular time to sort of sit down and maybe take a call with each other just to share your views on different parts of the game?
Probably not, mate. We get on well when we see each other, but we wouldn't go out of our way to make a call. And one of the nice things that used to happen in Test rugby was at the end of November they'd have a coaches conference where you'd discuss the game, and you'd have 2 days, and that'd be a good opportunity to catch up to people, but they've cancelled all of that, World Rugby, in their wisdom.
Well, that's a pity. That would seem to be a very good use of some investment to bring the coaches together, not only to draw from them their wisdom, but enable them to build some camaraderie, to build that spirit, which is part of rugby, that sense of friendship and engagement. But anyway, in their wisdom. So a busy weekend for you. Have you had the opportunity yet to catch up on the other matches that were played? Perhaps the England's 25-7 win over Australia.
England, I thought, again, looked a bit like South Africa. They beat Australia to the punch to nearly everything. Breakdown, tactically, it was hard ever to see Australia get any little advantage. There was that one period of 2 pieces of play where Alatoa, looked like he was going to throw the ball out of the back, took the ball to the line, the short ball to Valentini, and Valentini made a good line break, and once down the left-hand side. But apart from that, I can't recall any time that Australia were really looked like threatening England. And England played their very contained, very structured, kicking game, and off the back of that attack when they had the opportunity. And I thought they were really impressive, England. And Australia was a tough old afternoon.
Yeah. What about the Australian attack? Speaking to Ewen McKenzie before, he made the similar point that really any sort of attack that they did have was through the forwards, but there was really no threat from the Australian backs in any sort of organised, shaped or, strategic intent.
Yeah, I think what's happened, I was thinking about this last night actually, because it's a popular way to attack now, and teams use it at various times where they basically attack both sides of the ruck and try to find spaces within a fairly tight defence line. And then after they've tightened the defence up, try to swing with numbers and get a numerical advantage on the other side of the pitch. And, I think we commented about it in the Lions series, how good O'Connor was at making decisions about this.
Yeah.
And they've definitely lost his expertise at being able to see when they can potentially get a numerical advantage. So the attack, over the last period of time seems to become more constricted and tighter. Maybe Edmund's, as we know, is a young guy, and he's finding his feet in national rugby, and he might see the space, but he mightn't be calling it at the moment. That's one thing you find with younger players. Like we had a couple of occasions in our game where players see it, but they don't call it because, they don't have the confidence to call it, and Edmund might be going through a bit of that at the moment. And I think Pasami and Suwali, like Suwali over the last couple of weeks probably hasn't been at his best. He seems to be really struggling to find his game, and that's not a coincidence, I think, because Ikitau's has been out of the game, and Ikitau and him balanced each other. Ikitau, could do a little bit of distributing, but also could do some running, and also, because he was a left footer, gave a much more balance to the Australian team, whereas Pasami's a fairly straight, abrasive, Pasami, is a straight and abrasive player and a good player. But there seems, I can't recall seeing Australia go 10, 12, 13 in any sort of sense that it's an attacking threat.
Yeah. Ewen McKenzie made the point about also that attacking style of the Australians, attacking both sides of the ruck, close at the ruck. It's a very attritional, physical style of attack that takes a lot out of you. So you're putting bodies on bodies. People have got to clean out. And for mine, anyway, watching the game, Australia really lacked a bit of fizz in their performance. And, the theory perhaps is that by playing that attritional style that it has taken, the gas out of the tank and, the power out of the legs. And Australia are just, England looked to me to be absolutely fresh and full of running, not only through that first half, but then when they were able to bring all of their Lions players onto the field, they looked up for the contest, whereas Australia, to me, just looked a little off and weren't able to go with them.
So the counter-argument there was that they freshened up, remember, for this game?
Yeah.
It was 6 weeks since they played, so I don't think you can use fatigue as a reason. I think they just got physically beaten. And, when you bring Curry, Genj, you see the size of Genj. Like, they've got a new sponsor now, Custor, and the shorts are obviously pretty tight. You see his shorts? He had to cut the front of his shorts so his legs could fit in the shorts. But he looked like a monster, and he looked like he's brooding and
he was ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah, so and Luke Cowan-Dickie comes on, gets a turnover, who again, at his best is a abrasive player. And Will Stewart, weighs 125 Ks, and a big monster of a man. And so they came on and again they gave, and Pollock's obviously got his, can do some things that other players can't do. They came on and raised the intensity of the game, and Australia struggled to stay with them.
Yeah. So for that, with any other England players that caught your eye, or anything of the way that Steve prepared the side tactically that you were impressed with?
I thought, again, in the backs, they've got some big guys now on the wings, which they didn't have before. I think Roebuck from Sale on the right wing, won a couple of balls in the air, big aggressive guy, probably second or third year Test rugby now, and the flyer on the other wing from Exeter, he's got real footwork in big space. So that they seem to have added to the team. Freddie Stewart looks sharp at the back, made a couple of good line breaks in counter attack. Looked like he sharpened himself up, which was a criticism of him before, that he wasn't quick enough, and certainly ran a lot straighter. I think the English attack was a lot straighter. They've got a new coach in. He used to be the Wasp head coach, Lee Blackett, who's a pretty sharp guy, and he seems just to straighten their attack up a little bit, which suits their, kick early, kick hard, chase hard, contest the ball type game. They were the guys that stood out to me.
Yeah, no, very impressive, I thought, for mine. And, we'll see how the rest of November rolls out for them. Scotland, as predicted, 85 points to 0 winners over the USA, a clear gap in class. The USA missed something in the order of 37, 38 tackles. A lot of work to be done there to continue the improvement in USA rugby that World Rugby would like to be seeing ahead of 2031 or indeed 2027. But the big game in Chicago, the 62,000 who came in to watch the match. I described it to Ewen McKenzie as it was a mess. New Zealand's 26 points to 13 victory. What was your thoughts having watched that particular match?
Well, I think it'll get back to the Scotland-USA game. Yeah. It shows the gap between PNC and the rest of the world, and how important PNC is going forward, that competition needs to keep being played. Because I know with the budgets and all that sort of business, there's a question mark over whether it's on or not. But, countries like USA, Canada, ourselves, we need constant competition, to help bridge the gap. So I think that's the first thing. The second, I didn't enjoy that New Zealand-Ireland game. It seemed like the only thing I can remember that was outstanding to me was the GPS of the referee, because he must have got an extra 10 sprints sprinting to the centre of the field, watching it, this tiny little video. Here we are in the home of technology, USA, the most developed country in the world, right? We've got the referee in the middle of the game sprinting to a tiny television, trying to watch a replay of the game. It was just it was a bit of a joke. I found it a bit of a joke, to be honest. This is one of our best games between two of the best countries playing rugby, and we've got that going on. Give me a break. Yeah, we've got to have better stands. We want to make rugby strong, as we've spoken about. Well, there's people that have just got to take responsibility for those sort of things and really have a look at the standards we're allowing. Apart from that, 50-minute game, nothing in it. Ireland doing well, and up to then, it looked like New Zealand were incapable of putting 2 or 3 passes together. But again, then they found a bit of space, scored a good try, and from there, the last 15 minutes, they just strayed away with the game and found space pretty easily against Ireland, which was interesting. And again, Ireland, I don't want to talk too much about Ireland because we play them this week, but they're going through that transition where they used to have blokes like Healy and Connor Murray come off the bench, 100 cappers, come off the bench, Omani, 100 capper, tough, hardened players. And now they've got young guys coming through that are all finding their feet. So there will be an adjustment period for Ireland. They had young prop come on, Casey, the halfback, comes on. They're all young guys finding their feet. So, Ireland's going to go through maybe a little sticky period. How long it goes for, we'll wait and see.
Mm. How long would you expect something like that to take place? And clearly, with the development system that Ireland has and the access and the control over the players, would you imagine that this has been planned out, that they know that this is the time that they need to make these changes in order to be competitive by 2027?
Oh, they would have known for sure. There's no doubt about it. They're the most organised team in the world, and the most organised national union in the world. They've got control of nearly everything you want to have control on. They're a real symbol for world rugby of a cohesive structure. Now, how long is it going to take, Pemby? The key thing is how quickly players adapt to Test rugby. Firstly, have you picked the right player to come in? And you'd hope most of the time you get that right. And then secondly, how many tests it takes them to adapt. I remember when the really smart guy was with English Cricket Board, Ed Smith, who's written a fair few books. Really good fella. He was talking about the fact that in Test cricket, if they haven't scored 100 within 3 tests, it's highly unlikely they're going to be a top-class Test cricketer because they haven't learned to adapt. And adaptation, going from one level to the other is the real key of success, how quickly they can adapt to a new game. And we've seen in Test rugby the gap between one level and the next is the time and space and consistently physically applying the skills and how quickly can adapt to that.
So we'll talk about the games at the weekend later in the week when the sides are selected and lots to look forward to. Absolute bumper weekend coming up. But for you this week, you are still in London, I take it. So what does your week look like over the next couple of days?
No, we flew to Ireland yesterday.
Oh, you're in Ireland?
I'm in the Fitzpatrick Castle Hotel, which is a beautiful old hotel, about 30 minutes out of Dublin, fair way out. You don't stay in the city hotels anymore. They're too expensive. So we're out in the sort of boondocks. And we had as I said, we had a couple of meetings yesterday to try to get back on the front foot. Got a couple of new players came in yesterday. Natal Saito from Toulouse. So he'll bring a bit of experience and a bit of maturity to the team. And a Fijian lock that's been with us previously has come back in. So we've got a few more troops on board. So we'll get ready. We're lucky we had a good training week this week. Having had that dislocated week last week, we've missed a fair bit of training. So, we're looking forward to getting into our work this week.
But what another wonderful occasion, though, to be able to have this young Japanese team. And this weekend, they get to go and play against another of the great teams of world rugby in front of a packed house there in Dublin at the Aviva Stadium. You just can't buy this sort of experience, can you?
No, and particularly on the back of South Africa, where you got to pick yourself up, get yourself ready, go again. It'll again, for our players, young players, will show the players that can adapt to Test rugby and have got the ability to go through, So this tour for us in terms of sorting out our squad for the World Cup in 2027 is a really important one.
Yeah, and for the management team and the coaches as well, isn't it? Because everyone's practicing, everyone's, it gives everyone the opportunity, and you do see how everyone reacts around losses and the contributions that they can make around the field, because there are limited resources and you need all of those resources pushing in the right direction to get that high-performing team consistently over time. So very good. Well, enjoy the week. It's cold and wet, I imagine, in Dublin at this time of year.
No, it's definitely that, mate. Nothing changes. Nothing changes in that regard. But again, we've got to adjust to it, adapt to it, and get on with it.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, best of luck with adjusting and adapting and getting ready for this week. Very grateful that Eddie Jones would give us some of his time. We'll let him get away to the gym. It's about 4:45 in the morning now over there, so he'll have to go to the gym and do his exercise every day as he prepares for what will no doubt be a very busy day. And to you, the audience, the third voice, thank you for coming back once again. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your engagement, and thank you for your support, whether it be through YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Apple, social media, TikToks, whatever it is. We do sincerely appreciate the support that you've been giving to Rugby Unity, and we're certainly enjoying making the programs for you. So anyway, a big thanks to you for coming back once again. We'll be back later in the week with our preview show of the next big weekend in the November series in the UK. But for the moment, people, please be kind to each other. My name is David Pembroke, and it's bye for now.